Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie review. And after last week, my the first Thor movie review that I did, which by the way, check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talking of Carl. I figured like, oh my god, I forgot about The Incredible Hulk 2008, starring Edward Norton, not Mark Ruffalo. Uh, that was, the start of phase one of the MCU. And next year I want to cover like a couple of Avengers stories, but I really want to cover like at least because like I did the bulk of phase one. I just forgot about the Hulk, and I had to put it on the list immediately. So now that I cover like after this, I'll be covering the completion of phase one. You know, every once so often I cover like different portions of the other phases, of course, but I haven't like done the completion of phase one, and I haven't completed the good portion of the phase two either. Which, by the way, now I'm thinking about it, I probably should also cover like Marvel Civil War and cover the movie because I want to do that next year. But like I said, this is like starting Edward Norton as the character, and of course Liv Tyler, who hasn't shown up in these MCU movies. It was recently that they it was recently that it was announced that Liv Tyler will be returning as Betty Ross after for so long not being mentioned not one time, which is very odd, and which I still can't fathom as to why, to have Bruce Banner having some kind of fling or romantic thing with Natasha, and it seems like bizarre and out of left field. But it's like, did you forget about Betty Ross? Are you ignoring her? Do you have like a breakup or what? But it's never mentioned, and it's not like Liv Tyler was completely absent in the MCU. She was the voice of Karen in Peter Parker's suit, so she was there. So, but now you get to have her back again. But this is not as a voice anymore. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Let's make sure to get that covered. Necessary corrections. Anywho, yeah. So Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. We got a cameo from Lou Ferrigno, who provided a vocal performance of the Hulk, like he did in the he played the Hulk in like the old classic TV show in the 70s. So he's a big dude, but it's like I never met him, but he's always heard that he was like such a great guy. Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, who we haven't seen in such a long time, up until very recently in the She-Hulk TV show. Now he's in that whole new age hippy dippy kind of thing. William Hurt, the late William Hurt, plays Thaddeus Ross, who now is going to be replaced by Harrison Ford, who, after the whole situation with Star Wars, he's talking about like he doesn't want to be part of a franchise no more. But like, then why are you getting involved in the MCU? It's weird. So, oh, and by the way, you got the guy from Modern Family as like Doc Samson, who we didn't even know was Doc Samson till probably sometime later after this movie. Who plays as Betty's boyfriend. Oh, and get this. Peter Souls, who's supposed to be this pizza restaurant owner in this movie, also voiced Bruce Banner in the Marvel superheroes animated TV show back in the 60s, which is like, I did not even know that. It's a lot of like old school Hulk alumni involved in this film. Oh, I knew this was him. Martin Starr plays this, college student accredited as like computer nerd who gives like get free pizza from Bruce, and he's retroactively revealed to be Roger Harrington, who is one of Peter Parker's teachers in Spider-Man Homecoming. Well, all the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy stuff, but. What's the guy from the Martin Family? Don't I don't watch Modern Family, but yeah, Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, as the leader, one of Hulk's arch nemesis in the comics. Of course, we don't get to see that. I'm pretty sure the MCU and Kevin Feige is going to straighten that out pretty soon. Oh, Ty Burrell played Leonard Samson. So yeah, there we go. I love the way this movie opens up. It's kind of reminiscent to how like the Bill Bixby show typically was set up, like Dr. Banner, scientist, lover, son, searching a way to cure his affliction, that kind of thing. The way the thing was opening up, it kind of opens like that, except without the narration. And of course, you learn, of course, that Thunderbolt Ross trying to recreate the super soldier serum by using like gamma radiation. Of course, he doesn't tell Bruce that it's just like supposed to be gamma reduction or protection or something like that. So because this was so unstable, he decided to like test it on himself, and of course it ends up turning him into the Hulk. Fast forward 5 years later, he's searching a way to cure himself of the Hulk. Of course, there's deleted scenes of a deleted scene that was mentioned in the first Avengers movie, where Bruce actually who was at the end of his ropes, actually tried to put a gun to his mouth, kill himself or unalive himself, I should say. Keep it like YouTube friendly or whatever. But the Hulk spit up the bullet and everything like that. You know, it's self-preservation kind of situation. So he's in Brazil now. During this time, he doing yoga, trying to learn to control his rage, trying to prevent his heart rate from getting over 200, because it does, that triggers the transformation. So he's in Brazil while working at his bottle factory to afford like some private living space, as well as trying to work on a cure in the meantime, while getting in touch with this unknown associate called Mr. Blue, turns out to be Stearns, and trying to stay under the radar, because back in the day, the whole story is typically him running away from Thunderbolt Ross and the army. Not so much in recent years, but that usually be like a typical Hulk story. So we are introduced to Emil Blonsky, who is charged along with a bunch of group of soldiers, who finally they track down where Bruce will be after trying to fix a machine in the battle factory. Bruce ended up cutting himself, and one of the drop of blood ends up in one of the bottles that gets packaged up, shipped out to the U.S., drinking by Stan Lee cameo, and he gets radiation poisoning. And so once they track down where the bottle came from, they set up an operation. Of course, Banner immediately gets tipped off, and he starts to run. He ends up getting like jumped on by some co-workers who are just bullies, pretty much. And I like one of their interactions where it's like, if you've seen like the Eric Bana Hulk movie, by Ang Lee, at the end, he says in Spanish, "You're making me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." But it's like a callback to that. Instead of, the Spanish word for angry, he says hungry. And I like that kind of, is that and like a joke on the stretchy purple pants that we usually see the Hulk, always wearing like purple shorts kind of situation. And it's kind of like a signature look. So it's like a nod to those things. It's a bigger part of this movie is a good nod to classic Hulk kind of lore. That's why I got the green going on right here. It has to have the green. So they raise his heart rate to 200. He transforms, and I love the transformation in this film because it's like almost like a werewolf kind of transformation where it's slow and you see like bones distort and body enlarge. Is very good cinematography of the transformation. And throughout this part in the bottle factory, it's like a horror film. It's like he's constantly in silhouette or in shadow in some fashion. You only see parts of him, and he's just like flinging bodies like rag dogs. And of course, Blonsky is trying to like fight back, and it's like bullets mean nothing. I was like, why are you wasting the ammo? No, it's not penetrating. So, and I love this moment where one of the soldiers throws a flashbang and releases this gas, and you hear through, because the Hulk barely speaks, because it's not Smart Hulk. This is gonna be 10 years before we eventually get Professor Hulk, but he speaks in like short sentences, and he's like, he mumbles through the smoke, "Leave me alone." I love that. And of course you get the Hulk smash line, and of course you get the Lou Ferrigno voice doing it. It's like, Hulk smash, and it almost does like the almost like the MV see like Marvel vs. Capcom move where he's doing a rock wave kind of situation. It almost feels reminiscent to that, at least in my head, Kenneth. But anyway, he escapes. Emil is kind of flustered with Ross because like you sending us in to a situation that's without giving us complete knowledge of what we're dealing with, and we're dealing with like a monster that literally threw like a forklift like a softball. It's like, you know, what the heck is going on? Of course, he then tells Emil about the experiment and try to recreate the super soldier formula. So they decide to use the early stuff that I guess Banner kind of, you know, used to like eventually work off of as a baseline to what he eventually worked on. It's not the obviously the super soldier formula. It's like wherever they managed to like scrounge up. So they give him like a small dose, and it essentially worked because like Emil is, you know, faster, agile, you know, he's, you know, it's almost like Captain America, but not perfected. There's very little people that actually got like a good like not perfection, but close enough to Steve Rogers stuff. There's like the first Black Captain America, Isaiah Bradley's probably like the only other one who got like at least fairly close to Steve Rogers. But then you got, you know, US Agent who took it, but you know, side fact being that it's a little off. He's not crazy or anything like that, but it's like it is, you know, moral judgment slightly impaired here and there. But then you got Emil Blonsky, who's probably at the bottom tier, to where it's like his, you know, his sanity starting to deteriorate slightly a bit. But after Bruce hikes it from like, you know, because he went from like Brazil, thanks to Hulk, went all the way down to Guatemala, and he's like hitching rides when he's back to the States, and you know, he bunking at the pizza restaurant with the owner that he and Betty knew. He watching Betty from afar, but he's like using the schools that she's working at, like as a professor, using the campus computers in order to contact, you know, Mr. Blue, trying to, because he sent him like a blood sample and hopefully to try to figure out like a possible cure, because he's running out of options on his end because he doesn't have the resources necessary to actually do some, you know, probably more tests that he probably would like. And so far from what he's getting from Mr. Blue, he might potentially have found like a potential cure. So he ends up bumping into Betty, and they end up going to the campus, but they end up getting jumped by the soldiers, and he ends up transforming. You see in broad daylight, in full glory, the Hulk. And I like the MCU Mark Ruffalo look, but there's something about the Edward Norton version that I like slightly more. I don't know, it's just maybe a little bit detailed or on the face or something about it that's worked slightly more, just slightly more that than what I got from Mark Ruffalo. I don't know what it is. I think maybe because it's a little bit more smoother in the face with Mark Ruffalo, while the design with the Edward Norton version seems, you see more ripples in like the muscle, the cheekbones, the jawline. You know, it's just like I don't know, especially the face. When you get the good close up on the face, it's just like it's something that works with that. Where it's just like I don't know. It's not. I'm not talking about Professor Folk, even though it's in part of it. Even when like the Avengers up to Infinity War Hulk, uh, the face seems more smooth, and it's different CGI they're working with, and of course working with a different actor. But it's just like I don't know. Something about Norton versions seems slightly more better to me. Anyway, Emil just running and gunning and outpacing all these soldiers and just maneuvering around all these guys, you know, taking shots at him and everything like that. And of course, he's sitting there like dodging all the Hulk's hits and whatever, and just like triggering him to following him where while the other soldiers are manning these sonic guns that are keeping him pinned. And of course, I like Liv Tyler as Betty, but it's just like most of her dialogue just seems like in screams. Like, no, stop it, Rose, you're hurting. It's like, God, it's like, it's almost not as bad as like Vicky Vale in Batman 89, but it's like, wow, okay, you gotta, like, you just most of her is like soft spoken. It's screams. There's no in between. It's the most enjoyable part I liked about her is after this cab ride and she gets so frustrated and like, you know, just fits, like just anger and stuff like that. And it's like, Bruce's comments like, I got some yoga instructions to help with the man's anger. You shut it. That's like it's like pot kettle situation. But anyway, because of this fight, this helicopter drone try to fire, but Betty ends up getting in the way. Of course, Hulk protects her, but not before one of the most awesome shots in the trailer. It's like I was kind of like waiting for when I saw this movie, where like a G, like Blonsky just steps up to the Hulk and it's like, and not listen to Ross when he says, stand down, and he just pulls the earpiece out. It's like, is that all you got? And the Hulk just kicks him and sends him flying and crashing into a tree. And as one of the doctors points out, it's like his bones is mostly gravel at this point, but he's starting to heal because of the serum. And he's like, I'm ready for round 2 situation. The Hulk ends up, taking Betty for her protection, and they're in a mountain site, whatever. And of course, Doc Samson, it's like good on Doc Samson here, because it's like, he's such a great guy in this, because like, most movies can easily play him like a jealous boyfriend or anything like that. It's like, no, because he was there. It's like, I saw what happened. Like, I can see why she doesn't want anything to do with you, because he protected her, you did not. Of course, Doc Samson's a therapist, and we need more of that in the comics. I think we should have like a Doc Samson Center kind of like adventures or something, like where you just sit down and talking with different heroes of the Marvel universe, and like, because therapy is like a big thing, in recent years, and like I think like superheroes need like therapy too. And like he's the most famous superhero therapist in comics, aside from maybe a Harley Quinn. And I think we probably should do something like that with her maybe too. But it's like they're good at their job, and you need to highlight that, as well as you can get something from that. It just Avengers, Avengers, just like each issue just dealing with like a hero's particular issues and try to like work through it or whatever like that. It's just, I think that would be a fun set of stories to read. But then while making their way to New York, while Ross is still like his bones are starting to deform a bit because the stuff is not stable. Betty and Bruce meet up with Stearns and decide to use this supposed cure in order to cure him of the Hulk. And seemingly it worked. Ross and the soldiers break into Stearns' place, and you want to know how they found him. Bruce ended up sending like a email to him at one point, and because utilizing Shield stuff, they end up finding them out. So Ross threatens Stearns in order to give him wherever Bruce had. You know, Stearns points out, like, you probably already filled with some other stuff that I don't know, but you end up doing it anyway because Stearns is more curious about what you'll get in the result rather than trying to stand on any kind of morality. Ended up turning Emil into that not so flattering abomination. It kind of looks like, a gross Ninja Turtle. Of course, in the She-Hulk, kudos on them to actually give us like a comic book accurate abomination. You can say maybe he was just like a middle of a metamorphosis, and then he over time gone to the point of the comic book accurate abomination. So he breaks out, starts wrecking up shop in Harlem. Ross is alerted, and they come to realize that, oh my God, like Emil turns to kind of a freak. So he says, like, let me deal with it. And of course, Beta's like, you say you can't control that thing. And it's like, maybe I can't control it. I'm not trying to control it, but maybe I can aim it. And it's, back in the day, that's probably the best way to deal with the Hulk. It's like, more often than not, he understands, but not like full degrees. But it's like with the in Avengers movie when like Cap was like, Hulk smash. All you need to say, just aim him until eventually he has like a higher intelligence and stuff like that, with utilizing perfect synergy with Bruce Banner over time. But it's like, just give him some kind of enemy to just point at that's like a threat, and Hulk just do what he'll do. So I love this part when it's like he's like trying to trigger the change, and he's falling out of the helicopter, and it's like, oh, because it's not immediately doing it. The stress of the fall is not happening. It wasn't until the impact where I was surprised it just immediately kills him. But like Stern said, it's not like a complete cure. It's probably just more so maybe like an antidote that suppresses it, and that you probably have to take in like medicine every once in a while. But he transforms, still a little bit weary from the supposed antidote, but he's still trying to regain his strength a bit. And so him and Abomination go at it. Now, little known fact, the Abomination is, if you're not in the know of comics like that, especially Hulk comics, the Abomination is known to be at base level stronger than the Hulk. It's only when the Hulk gets mad and stronger, madder and stronger, is eventually he overpowers the Abomination. That's how he typically beats him. So they go throughout and pretty much almost turn like the neighborhood of Harlem into like a war zone, and Ross decides to use the gun to try to help out the Hulk, and Hulk and Abomination ends up taking down the helicopter, and these two fight. Cool display, no sky being crap, and you see the Hulk doing this classic thunderclap thing to prevent the fire from blowing Betty in the helicopter, and the Hulk chokes out the Abomination, and thanks to Betty not kill him. So he ends up escaping from New York. And of course, the whole the abomination has been in the raft this whole time. It only been his name only other times been spoken of is during like Agents of Shield, you know, maybe a couple of times. But we haven't seen him since until She-Hulk show. So now, and this is the funny part, I cannot help but not think this. If you've seen like this movie and the end of WandaVision, this little field that Banner is on, where he's in this like secluded cabin, almost looks reminiscent of the cabinet in the woods that you've seen at the end of WandaVision. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same cabin that she just took up residence because Banner's not using it anymore. And now, instead of trying to use his skills he learned in yoga to suppress the Hulk transformation, now he's been working on trying to use it and try to control it. And it's also the final shot where he's like, you know, number of days without incident, 31. Open up his eyes and turns green, 1. But then you see like a Stinger, classic MCU end credit, where Ross is drinking his woes away in a bar, and comes Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, saying like, you know, I told you about that Super Soldier Serum, Ross. I always found hardware much more reliable. Stark, you always wear such nice suits. Touche. I hear you had an unusual problem. You should talk. You should listen. What if I told you we put in a team together? Who's we? And then that's where it is. The end credits are always so much fun, and like I think by phase 2, if not halfway through phase 2, that people are just been taught to wait until the end credits of Marvel films to see what comes next. And now it feels like, maybe because it feels like almost everybody's trying to do it now, but we're just so, unless it's like a superhero property in general, we're just too programmed to just stay at the end credits of any superhero film, because it was a while before eventually DC started to do it. But you know, unless it's, you know, Marvel related, we don't stay until the end credits. Now we stay until end credits for all superhero related content. But this movie is a lot of fun. It's fun to revisit this. It was really fun, and yet still Universal still has control over the Hulk, just like with Namor. That's why we'll never get any solo Hulk or Namor films, because Universal, at best, it's like Spider-Man, where the only time we have the MCU will have the Hulk is when they're doing like team up stuff. And the same thing with Spider-Man. But Universal, unlike unlike Sony, won't make any solo Hulk stuff. Sony, however, is doing a lot of Spider-Man related stuff, including solo things. That's why they probably got maybe just a notch above Universal in that department. But anyway, definitely revisit this, because I don't think people back then kind of poo-pooed this movie during phase 1. But over time, man, it just, you know, people look back on it as like, actually, it's a pretty solid film, and it's like very good. Of course, like people had their little misgivings with the Eric Bana and Lee Hulk. This is like a proper Hulk kind of, not so origin story. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes for one more movie spoiler review that I really want to talk about. Another biopic. This is probably my third one. The last one was Saving Mr. Banks with like Mary Poppins, the creator, and Walt Disney. And the other one I did before a year ago would have been The Man Who Saved Christmas. No, 2 years ago. The Man Who Created Christmas, about like Charles Dickens. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes where I'll cover the biopic Tolkien starring Nicholas Hoult. Because with the Renfield movie coming out, and then the X-Men eventually can be part of the MCU, I want to make sure that, you know, and especially with me going to be covering a lot of X-Men related stuff, with Nicholas Hoult being Young Beast, I figured, like, you know, we get, you know, cover some Nicholas Hoult. Yeah, let's cover some Nicholas Hoult, and Tolkien being like one of the things he's because I'm pretty sure he's been leading role in other stuff, but this is the one that I can think of, other than maybe like a TV show where he's some kind of mad, you know, medieval king. I haven't watched that. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit. Like and subscribe, you know, leave a comment, let me know what you think of this film, and yeah, I'll see you all in a little bit.